Hey guys, welcome to the tight end edition of our waiver wire picks for week 8. Here to help you make the best decisions, who to pick up, who to stream, and who to avoid heading into week 8. Again, halfway through the season, so you want to make some smart decisions. Maybe one of these guys is somebody you want to hold on to the rest of the season. You don't have to play the streaming game, especially if you're heading toward the playoffs eventually. So speaking of, let's talk number 5, my top 5 tight end picks for this week. At number 5, I have Logan Thomas, which may be surprising because he's not playing this week. All right, Washington is on bye, so this is not a pickup that you obviously want to use as a streamer. But if you're in a deeper league or if you're looking for a solid tight end too, maybe you don't need a starting tight end. You just want to ditch your backup. Whatever the case is, you want somebody who might be there as an insurance policy. I actually like Logan Thomas a lot. You notice that he disappeared after a while, had a really strong week 1, didn't do much. But you might not realize he's seen at least 4 targets in every game this season. So he's been there. Just, the production, obviously, quarterback change. Dwayne Haskins is out. Allen was in. He got hurt. Now that we should have some consistency, it looks like it'll be Allen the rest of the season after the bye. That could help him. And you know what? Back-to-back games so far with Allen at starter, it's helped. He's had at least 40 yards in the touchdown. So I really like Thomas as kind of like that high-end tight end too. Maybe he'll even sneak into the low-end tight end 1 conversation. Could be a guy you start week in and week out, just not this week. But keep him in mind just because he's on a bye. Don't forget about him. You know what? Maybe you need somebody next week. You make that quick pickup after waivers run for week 9. All right, so who can help you this week? Week 8, my number 4 pick, honestly, might be my number 1, except that it's just a really terrible matchup. But Irv Smith has come on. Talked about him before, probably last week, talked about him a lot, except that he was on bye, but now he's off bye. And so the only reason I'm not all over him is because it goes against the Packers. Packers have only given up 1 touchdown to tight ends yet this year, really stingy against that position, and their defense has been surprisingly good. So Smith has been involved. I still think he'll get some looks, but he just might not do a lot with them. So expect another kind of blah game here in PPR. He might get you a few points, but nothing necessarily worth chasing. I like him, though, again, as a rest of the season target. So, again, if you're looking for somebody with upside, I really like Smith, if I haven't made that clear yet. Number 3, I'm going to go with Eric Ebron. And I know we're always kind of hesitant to recommend him because he comes and goes, right? He tends to have a decent game and then disappear. And here's the other thing. He hasn't scored a touchdown. Believe it or not, of all people, Eric Ebron does not have a touchdown yet this year. But he is involved. He's right up there with all their receivers as far as target share, believe it or not. So he's getting in the action. Obviously, their offense is doing great in terms of passing. So he does have a decent floor. The problem is, again, he's competing with 4 really good receivers for targets, and he's not getting in the end zone for whatever reason. So that's the only thing. It's just hard to see him carving out a big piece of that pie. So, again, you're looking for a solid pick. Ebron is kind of always there, but you can't go crazy for him either. Now, my number 2 pick is somebody who is a little more interesting. Also didn't play last week because of the bye, but if you remember, but when we last saw Trey Burton in action, he had 2 touchdowns and was suddenly becoming the top tight end. He was hurt for a while to start the season. Mo Alley-Cox was the hot name for a while, and then he disappeared. So here's the only question. Mo Alley-Cox, if he's healthy and comes back and plays, does that cut into Ebron's targets? Is this a 3-man committee at tight end with Jack Doyle? Because they all seem to be involved at some point. And this isn't really a prolific passing offense. That last game with Cincinnati, they had to pass because they just happened to fall down early. But don't expect to see a lot of volume because they really don't want Phillip Rivers throwing the ball 50 times. I guarantee it. So Burton is an interesting name. He seems to have emerged as their top tight end target. But again, definitely risky. And of course, there's always a chance he gets hurt again because that's kind of what he tends to do. So I don't love Burton necessarily as my starting tight end, but he is playable. This week is also not a good matchup. Honestly, none of these tight ends have great matchups. Detroit, not a shutdown defense, but for some reason, they're really tough against tight ends. So I don't really recommend starting Burton this week. I'd probably rather have Ebron, in a vacuum, but he probably will have more long-term upside. The top tight end probably for this week and possibly beyond, besides Irv Smith, I got Richard Rodgers, believe it or not. Zach Ertz is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, they say. Dallas Goedert, I know, might come back soon, but probably not for another 2 weeks at the earliest. I don't think Ertz will get traded just because he's injured and, the whole contract issue. Some team is probably not going to want to, use him for the end of the year just to try to extend him. I don't see that happening. So I think he'll stay put. But you know what? Ertz might be kind of phased out of this offense by the end of the year anyways. So Rodgers will give you decent value at the very least for this week, and maybe the next couple of weeks, depending on how Goddard, is when he comes back. This team is desperate for targets. I guarantee at wide receiver position, Deshaun Jackson's now on IR. All right, Alshon Jeffrey, who knows if he comes back. So Rodgers, as we saw last week, surprisingly led the team with 85 yards receiving, 6 receptions. So at the tight end position, Rodgers has maybe as high a floor as you can find on waivers, at least for the short term. So keep him at the forefront if you're doing tight end streaming. You need help at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, check out my other episodes here on the End Game. Remember, our goal is to help you win. That's why we're here each and every week. Hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw, and leave us a comment if you want to. We'll help answer all your questions if there's a player I didn't mention or somebody else you need advice about. All right, guys, thanks for watching.